Good afternoon everyone. Today inshallah we'll be explaining the chapter وكمان نفس الوقت we're gonna review the chapter so that we can suit the needs of those who did start studying it and those who have no idea what's going on about the chapter. Okay. So first of all, I'd like to start with a question. Now, what is the main component of the skin? You already did study the tissues, right?
Yes.
Okay, what is the main component of the skin in terms of the tissues? Connective tissue, actually.
Oh.
Why? Because as later on we're going to study, we have two layers in the skin, epidermis and dermis. And the bulk of the skin is the dermis, which is dense, irregular connective tissue. The epithelium only constitutes the epidermis, part of it that you can... Okay. Now the hypodermis, to be frank, it's not really a component of the skin. It's just there to anchor your skin layers, dermis and epidermis, to the underlying structures, basically the bone, muscles, and everything that lies underneath. So the hypodermis is mainly composed of fat or adipose tissue, and we have some small proportion which is contributed by the areolar connective tissue, which is there for binding, basically, for binding the skin to the bone and muscles underneath. Now, as you can see over here, we have many different functions of the hypodermis, one of which is fat storage. Fat storage, basically this becomes important in infants, and also this becomes prominent in people who are malnutritioned. Anyone has an idea why? Okay, so in malnutrition, you'd find that people who have very low nutrients in their body, you'd find that their skin is very anchored to the underlying bones. And this is because the last resort for our body cells is to use the fat from this hypodermis. Okay? And we also have shock absorption, so you'd find that it's more concentrated in the regions that you're likely to bump. And also it is going to be very loosely attached to the skin, more or less to spread the force or the bump that you get exposed to. Okay. Now I'm going to get back to this diagram after I'm done, because basically it has all the structures that I will be covering and my colleague will be covering throughout the session. Now moving on to the cells of the epidermis. Now epidermis, I did mention, it's the first layer of the skin. Okay, so there are many cells that go into this layer, and the most prominent cell type is the keratinocytes. Now, what do keratinocytes do? Does anyone have any idea? Yes?
I forgot.
No worries. Actually, keratinocytes, yeah? Protection, more or less because they produce keratin, right? So keratin is the protein that they are going to produce and accumulate as they go up through the layers. And you'd find that some of these cells are anchored by desmosomes, some of them are anchored by tight junctions, more or less for strength and preventing the leakage of the fluids between the cells. Tamam? And dendritic cells, more or less, they are, as you know, immune cells, so they don't really originate from the skin. However, they are there because you know the skin is the first line of defense, right? So it has to be there because any contact with any pathogens will immediately activate those cells. What is their function? Dendritic cells will basically detect the pathogen and present it to the immune cells, which are required to deal with it. Okay? Tactile epithelial cells are very rare, but they are present in the junction between the dermis and the epidermis. You'd find that they are never alone. They are usually associated with a nerve ending. So the cell, along with the nerve ending, they create a combination. What is this combination? A Merkel disc. Tamam? And هذا الميركل disc, it's serving as a touch receptor. Okay, so basically the sense of touch is mainly attributed to this type of cell. Melanocytes are, unlike the other cells, they do not originate from the skin. As you might have studied already, it originates from the neural crest cells. Okay, and they are going to produce the melanin within granules called melanosomes, which are going to be transported from the melanocytes onto the keratinocytes. And the keratinocytes, along the way, they're also producing keratin. So they're producing keratin and they're getting the melanosomes, and then they're going upward. And as you can see, this is going to provide protection and also the skin tone, basically. Now, the cells that I did mention earlier, they are present in different compositions in different layers of the epidermis. The epidermis has got 4 to 5 layers based on the location. So you'd find that in the thick skin, there are 5 layers, and in the thin skin, there are 4 layers, right? So, أول شيء we have the stratum basale. If we want to go from the deepest to the most superficial, we have stratum basale or stratum germinativum. It is germinativum because this is the germinating layer. So you find that the cells are highly mitotic. تمام? هلا here it is going to contain melanocytes, it's going to contain keratinocytes, Merkel cells as well, tactile epithelial cells, because as I mentioned earlier, they're located at the junction. And next we are going to have the stratum spinosum. Stratum spinosum is basically named because of the appearance of the cells, which is not real appearance of the cells. So you find that in reality the cells do not have spine-like extensions. It's only because during the preparation of the tissue, the microscopic preparation in order to see it under the microscope, the cells will basically hold onto their desmosomes and the cell membrane is going to shrink, okay? So as the cell membrane shrinks, you'll see that spine-like extensions or artifacts are going to appear, okay? One thing that you have to remember about this layer is that there are, of course, the presence of pre-keratin that you have to note down. Pre-keratin is basically a component of the intermediate filaments, okay, of these cells. And what is the function? Basically just to resist tension. This layer is also going to contain a lot of dendritic cells that we mentioned earlier. The immune cells are mainly present in the stratum spinosum. Now, stratum granulosum is basically the layer that serves as a junction between the cells that are alive and the cells that are starting to die. So from this layer onwards, you start to find that the cells start to gradually die. Tamam? Why? Because we're going away from the dermis, right? Away from the blood supply. Now, granulosum, the name suggests what?
Granules.
Granules, exactly. And you'd find that there are 2 main types of granules, keratohyaline and lamellar granules, producing the keratin and the lipids, basically. Stratum lucidum, now, what is special about this layer? Stratum lucidum? Yes, exactly. So this is the additional layer in thick skin, and nothing special about it besides this and the fact that it contains just keratinocytes, just for protection. And lastly, the most superficial layer and the thickest and the most important in protection is the stratum corneum. Stratum corneum is the one that gets shed regularly, because without shedding, what will happen? You'd find that the skin starts to accumulate, the skin cells will start to accumulate. And do you have any idea about what happens when it doesn't shed? No? Okay, so when your skin does not shed regularly, what happens is that this is going to impair the immune function of the skin, and the fact that it's not going to be able to function as the first layer of defense anymore. And on top of this, you'd find that people who have problem with this cannot move their joints easily. Okay? The other names that I mentioned here, I wrote down. These are very important, and usually they ask about the layer in different names. مثلا, they can tell you stratum germinativum instead of stratum basale, or the clear layer instead of stratum lucidum. So just expect anything, basically. Just know all the names, okay? Okay. Now the dermis, which is just as important, if not even more important, lies underneath the epidermis. It has got 2 main layers. Papillary is very thin. It's usually the one that is in contact with the epidermis, and then the reticular dermis lies underneath. The first main difference between these two is the fact that the tissue composition is going to differ. So the papillary dermis is mainly just areolar connective tissue, and the reticular dermis is going to be dense irregular connective tissue. Tamam? Papillary dermis is going to have nerve endings, free nerve endings, just to enable you to sense things. And it's going to contain immune cells, possibly because this is the closest to the epidermis, closest to your surroundings, and also it is going to contain a lot of collagen and elastic fibers. Collagen is mainly for what, Aslam?
Strength.
Exactly. And elasticity is contributed by the elastic fibers. Okay? One thing that is important about this layer, usually really important to know, is the fact that the papillary dermis is present in terms of the dermal papilla. So you find that it's existing in forms of protrusions. And whenever we have a protrusion, there's something, the thing that is going to lie above that is going to accommodate for it, right? So you find that this is a dermal papilla, and this one is going to be an epidermal ridge, basically the part of the epidermis that is in close contact with it. This combination of the epidermal ridge and the dermal papilla is going to create your fingerprints, okay? And reticular dermis, one thing that you have to know also here is that the collagen fibers in this layer are going to be very thick, very coarse, even though they're present in both. In this layer, they're going to be in bundles, and between the bundles, there are like basically spaces, or not spaces, but rather regions where collagen is not in much prevalence, and you'd find that, these lines are going to be the basically the guide for surgeons. Why? Because when they cut parallel, or they cut parallel to these lines, the cut is usually healing faster. If they cut مثلا perpendicular, then it will take longer to heal. Okay? Some of the features of the skin, مثلا we have flexure lines. Flexure lines are basically where the dermis is tightly anchored to the underlying structures. Okay, so you find that this is more prominent on your palms, fingers, soles, toes, etc. And striae is another term for the stretch marks, and these form usually when the dermis tears. Usually this is common during pregnancy, or people who are obese and suddenly lose weight. Blisters, as you know, they are a common sign of burns, as my colleague will mention later. And these form between the epidermis and the dermis. They are fluid-filled pockets, basically. Skin color, as you know, it originates from which pigment?
Melanin.
Exactly. And this melanin is basically produced via the enzyme tyrosinase. Okay, so the precursor of melanin is tyrosine, an amino acid. And the color of melanin is changing. There are different forms of melanin, pheomelanin and so on, reddish yellow to brown black. It is produced usually in excess in response to the exposure to sunlight, and it contributes to our skin tone. Okay? Are we always protected from UV radiation?
No.
Definitely not. There's always a limit to everything. So you'd find that despite melanin's protective effects, if someone is exposed to the sunlight during the day, the entire day, over time they're going to be experiencing the flakes of the skin. You'd find that their skin becomes more leathery. The elastic fibers, they start to clump in the reticular dermis. This is going to depress their immunity, or more or less, in the very severe conditions, it's going to affect the DNA of the skin cells. Okay, and we know that this is really the worst case scenario, because this is going to cause the skin cancer. On top of this, we have to know that there are certain chemicals that increase the photosensitivity of your skin. Okay, usually antihistamine drugs, antibiotics, and detergents. Okay. We have other pigments beside melanin. We have carotene. Carotene is found in, I think you can remember from the name, carrots. And people who eat a lot of carrots, usually their skin is going to turn orange. But how can we distinguish between people who are eating a lot of carrots and people who have jaundice? Jaundice, if you may or may not know, this is basically a sign of liver disease, and the main effect is basically showing on the sclera of the eyes, or the white portion of the eyes. And this is actually what distinguishes between the two. So people who eat a lot of carotene-containing foods will not experience this feature. This is only in jaundice. Hemoglobin is, as you know, the oxygenated pigment in RBCs. And this is usually contributing to the color of the skin, specifically in people who have very fair skin. تمام؟ طيب. Clinical skin color changes. We have cyanosis, pallor, we have bruises, and so on. Cyanosis is basically the bluish tint. Okay, and this usually indicates an underlying respiratory or cardiovascular issue. Pallor is usually due to anemia, due to low BP, and so on. And erythema usually indicates allergy, inflammation, can be due to fever. Why fever? Does anyone know? Okay.
Because it causes capillaries near the skin to dilate.
Exactly. So this is more or less a thermoregulatory mechanism. The blood flows towards the skin to just dissipate the heat. Okay? Bruises, also known as ecchymosis or hematomas, when the blood leaks under the skin, usually with days you'd find that the color changes, purple, green, yellow, etc. We have velvety patches as well, which are more prominent on the neck and the axillary region, and this usually indicates that there is a metabolic disorder, insulin resistance or high blood sugar. Now just before moving on to the next part, I want to test your knowledge and how focused you were during my first explanation. So what do you think the answer of this question is? Okay, since all of you are opting to answer, then as a whole, yeah?
Number 4.
Number 4?
Number
Three.
three.
Yeah. Okay. Do you all agree on this answer?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Now, this question, I think it needs the figures, so I'll skip it. Okay, I did mention this. Yeah?
The dermal ridges and the epidermal ridges.
Perfect, yeah. Okay. Yeah, this question.
It's, I think it's areolar.
I think it's irregular.
That's irregular because areolar is only present in the papillary dermis. Okay? But the main tissue type is density. Okay. This is more of testing your knowledge rather than my presentation. No, this requires critical thinking.
I'm guessing reticular because the blood vessels on the middle.
Exactly. So blood vessels are located in the papillary dermis and also in the reticular dermis. But what makes the difference is that the blood vessels in the papillary dermis are very thin. So usually the bleeding contributed from there is not significant. But the reticular dermis, just underneath it, you'll find that there is a very dense venous and arterial plexus, and this is going to basically provide the supply for the overlying tissues. Okay, this question, I think the one we can delay it. Goosebumps, yeah. Okay, this is easy. Cornea, exactly. Do we all agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's the first one. It sheds regularly.
Correct.
The fourth one?
Fourth one, stratocorneum.
The third one.
Or, yeah.
Third one, actually.
Because the melanocytes are mostly there.
Yes, exactly. So whenever you see tyrosinase, you see melanocyte, you see melanin production. كلهم مع بعض, okay? Okay, moving on to the hair. Hair is one of the main skin appendages. And when I say skin appendages, they're basically features or structures that come with the skin to enable it to do its function. Okay? So hair, as you know, is found almost everywhere except for certain regions like the palms and the soles, because these are the regions where you find thick skin. Also lips, littles, and parts of external genitalia. Main human function, usually the function of hair becomes prominent in animals, but in humans, it usually helps in detecting the skin, because when you feel an insect, detect insects, because when you feel that an insect is moving on your skin, this is primarily by the hair. Also, it has a protective role based on where the hair is present. Eyelashes, for example, shield the eyes. On the scalp, this is going to protect you from the sun exposure, because that's the part that is most exposed to the sun, and also the nose hairs. Okay. For the structure, we have a hair shaft and hair root, and we have a hair follicle, which is a tubular structure that is going to enclose this hair. Okay, so just for protection. طيب. Now hairs, as you know, when you cut your hair, you do not feel pain. Why?
Because
Yeah,
it's
I
black.
don't
Yeah,
like
Exactly. So it's mainly dead keratinized cells. Usually the type of keratin that is present in the hair is the hard keratin type. Okay? What does it mean? Hard keratin يعني it is tougher, meaning that it does not flake off. So definitely your hair is not going to flake off. Okay? But the soft keratin is completely different. It's the one that is found on your skin, and this is what causes the cells of the stratum corneum to shed regularly. And the regions of the hair, root is basically embedded within the skin, so this part you cannot see. The shaft is the one that you can see, the one that protrudes from the skin. Okay? And here I think this is just pure memorization. If you take a cross-section of the shaft, what this indicates about the type of the hair, if it's kinky, wavy, or straight. Okay? طيب, هلا we have 2 or 3 main parts, more to be frank, 3 main parts of your hair. The medulla, the inner part, cortex, and then finally the overlying cuticle. Medulla is basically made up of large cells, very prominent cells, and a lot of spaces in between, and it's the only part with soft keratin. لأنه previously we mentioned إنه hard keratin is found in the hair. Okay? طيب, this part is the only part of the hair that has soft keratin, and this is usually absent in fine hairs or baby hairs, يعني, if you're familiar with this term. بعدين عندنا cortex. Cortex is basically more bulky, more thick than the medulla, and then we have the cuticle, which is there for protection. So usually when the cuticle is damaged or undergoing abrasion, you'd find that some people have split ends. Okay, and this is due to the damage of the cuticle. Okay, I think these pictures will become more important as I discuss the layers of the hair, the hair follicle, and so on. طيب, hair pigmentation is very similar to the skin pigment or the skin tone. Usually, again, the same cells, melanocytes. The color changes from one person to another. You'd find that some people have red-orange hair, primarily due to the pheomelanin, which is very similar to melanin in structure. And then we have the people who are older. Usually they have gray hair, as you know, right? So here it's not about the type of the melanin that changes, but rather the quantity of the melanin decreases. And to fill in the spaces, we have just air spaces or air bubbles. That's it. Okay. Yeah. What do you think the answer is? Okay.
Melanocytes at the base of the hair follicle.
Okay. Does everyone agree? Okay, so let me go through the question. Which of the following cells are primarily responsible for the initial pigment production? So definitely keratinocytes produce the keratin, fibroblasts, connective tissue, collagen, and so on. Langerhans cells are immune, so this one is the correct answer. Good job. Moving on. Okay. Structure of the hair follicle. Now, as I said earlier, hair is epithelial, or more or less an invagination of the epidermis, and it's pretty much an appendage of the skin. It has the hair root, hair shaft, and the hair bulb. What is the hair bulb? It's basically, as you can see, it's like a tubular structure, and then it becomes like a bulb. This more like ball-shaped structure is the hair bulb, and then protruding into the hair bulb, we have dermis, or part of the dermis that is going to protrude in this region. What is the significance of this, do you think?
Degeneration.
What is it?
Blood supply.
Exactly, yes. So you find that the portion that protrudes is the dermal papilla, and this dermal papilla is going to provide a lot of capillaries and blood supply for the growth of the hair. Okay? Moving on. Okay. So you find that definitely if you pull your hair or you pluck your hair, definitely this is going to cause a lot of pain. طيب, why is that? Because of the sensory nerve supply. So around the hair bulb, or the region where the hair is going to be pulled, there is a very prominent nerve plexus referred to as the root hair plexus. Okay? And as I mentioned, the hair papilla is basically the part that is targeted laser treatments and so on, because this is the part that supplies the blood. If there is no blood, no supply to the cells that will eventually give rise to the hair, and no hair as a result. Okay. So layers of the hair follicle. Hair follicle is there to protect the hair, more or less. So the layers of the hair follicle include the epithelial root sheath, glassy membrane, and peripheral fibrous sheath. Okay? So as you can notice over here, an epithelial root sheath is epithelium, and the one that is most superficial is the fibrous sheath. And whenever we have epithelium and connective tissue, what do we have connecting them?
Basement membrane.
Exactly. So this glassy membrane is just acting as a basement membrane. Okay. An epithelial root sheath, as I mentioned earlier, this is the innermost part. It has got two layers, internal and external. Okay. And then we got the glassy membrane and the peripheral, which is basically forming the outermost layer. Can you go back to the picture? Yes. So this is the internal root sheath, the external root sheath, glassy membrane, and then the overlying part is the fibrous sheath. Okay. Internal root sheath, by the way, comes from the matrix cells. What are the matrix cells?
The one that produces the hair cells.
Exactly. They are in very close contact to the papilla or the roots, the blood supply, so they're going to give rise to the hair. Okay. So this is basically the procedure, or more or less how the hair is produced. Awal we have the what happens is that the matrix cells are pretty much highly mitotic, صح? So in this case, they're going to divide. They're going to push the older cells upward. And why am I mentioning older cells? لأنه in these cells, when they're pushed upward, they're going to have a lot of keratin, and they're going to be away from the blood supply, and that's why the hair is dead, basically, the dead cells. Okay. And then, because the matrix is going to end at some point, so the cells in the matrix are going to end, so there should be something that supplies more cells. We have the hair bulge. The hair bulge is located closer to the skin surface, and it provides more cells that will migrate to the matrix, provide more cells, so that this happens all over again.
I have a question.
Yes.
It says that the cells then die to form the shaft of the hair. So is the root of the hair not dead?
Root of the hair? No.
The root isn't dead.
If it's multiplying, it's not dead. So if
Exactly.
it's something that's producing cells, it's not dead.
Isn't the hair, the bottom, the hair bulb is the one that's producing the cell?
The hair bulb is more or less just the part of the hair follicle that is circular in structure. It's not the hair itself. The hair as a whole is dead, yes. The root is basically the part that is producing the cells, so it is the part that is alive. Moving on, we have erector pili muscle. Erector pili muscle is a smooth muscle, okay? And this is going to attach to the hair and also attach to the sebaceous gland. Sebaceous gland, if you might know, this is the gland that will secrete sebum. And this is always going to open into a hair follicle. It can never open alone, okay? So you'd find that the contraction of this muscle is going to help in compressing the gland in order to allow the sebum to go out, okay? This is one of the main functions in humans. Another one is producing goosebumps, basically when you're cold or when you're anxious and so on. Yeah.
A.
Exactly. Does everyone agree?
Yes.
Yeah. I mentioned this actually.
Epithelial.
Hmm?
Epithelial.
Yes.
Do you all understand why?
Because they are there, like, more keratin.
It's from the epidermis.
Exactly. Invagination. Yeah. طيب.
Composed of dead and keratinized cells.
Oh, sorry. Composed of epithelial cells. Do you know why? Sorry, I read it as hair shaft, yeah?
Because they're mitotic, like, you know.
Hair follicle, not the hair shaft. Hair follicle is the part that is going to surround the hair. This one is the hair shaft.
Oh.
If I'm saying hair shaft, that's the keratinized cells. But hair follicle, if you remember, it is the epithelial sheath, it is the glassy membrane, and then we have also the fibrous sheath. So the epithelial sheath, which is coming from the epidermis, is epithelial cells. Okay. طيب. Hello, we have two main types of hair. We have vellus hair and terminal hair. Vellus hair is usually prominent in children, okay, because their hormones are still not active, or in adult females as well. Terminal hair is basically found in both genders, but the difference is that it is thicker than the vellus hair, essentially because it is under the effect of hormones, okay, primarily androgens. So it's found in your eyebrows, eyelashes, and scalp, okay? So facial hair, for example, what type of hair is it?
Depends if it's male or female.
Exactly. That's the answer I'm looking for. Okay. Hair growth. Hair growth, okay, so this occurs in cycles, basically the active cycle, and then we have another resting phase, and then active cycle, and this keeps on going. And the cycle, the length of the cycle will depend on the location of the hair, okay? So I'm going to be mentioning that later, but for now you have to know that the active phase is when the matrix cells are going to divide rapidly, and this is going to cause the lengthening of the hair. And then the resting phase is when the matrix is going to become inactive, and this is going to cause the follicle to shrink. Okay? For the lifespan, I did mention earlier, it is shorter in some regions, it is thicker and it is longer in others. In eyebrow hair, for example, it is going to be active for only a few months, so that otherwise your eyebrows will be very long, صح? So at the same time, the scalp hair, the cycle should be very long to allow your hair to grow before it is starting a new resting phase. Okay? Whenever we have something physiological or something normal happening in our body, we have something that counteracts this usually. One of which is hirsutism. Hirsutism is basically the abnormal growth of hair, primarily the terminal hair in females in regions that it shouldn't grow normally. So this usually is caused by an underlying cause, like for example PCOS and adrenal tumors or ovarian tumors, because the cysts, for example, on the ovaries in PCOS or the tumors in the ovarian tumors are going to produce a lot of androgens, exactly. And androgens, as I already mentioned, they are the food for terminal hair, basically. Okay, moving on. Now, the opposite of this is hair thinning and baldness. Baldness, of course, in males primarily. Under ideal conditions, usually the growth of hair is most effective in your teenager years until you reach your 40s. Okay? When the hair shedding is more than the hair replacement, what happens? Exactly, the hair is going to be very, very thin. Okay? And by as you go older and older, you'd find that both genders are going to experience baldness or hair thinning at some point. Okay? So true baldness, for example, which is in males, is genetically determined. Okay? And this is not only, for example, when the male is older. This can happen when the male is very young. Okay? So as I said, it is genetically determined and primarily due to androgens. And I'm not going to go into details why, because it's not important for you now, but it's basically like the androgens are going to change their form in a way that is going to cause certain hair follicles to be more sensitive to it, okay? Yeah. Okay. Now, another homeostatic imbalance, and by the way, whenever I say homeostatic imbalance, it's very, very important, and no, it is going to come, basically. And we have another one, which is telogen effluvium, or TE. This is basically the hair not more or less continuing its full active phase. It is entering the resting phase immediately. So what are the causes? Surgery, hormonal changes, crash dieting. When you feel so much stress as well, this can cause the delusion of looking.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do the cycles happen to each hair follicle individually, or is it a group of hair follicles that go through cycles?
Actually, a good question. This I'm going to be mentioning it now. It is it's not synchronized. Otherwise, if all of the hair enters the resting phase, you'll go bald, right? So we want it to be different cycles. For example, one hair follicle is resting, another is active, so that you don't lose all of your hair at the same time. Okay? And I think this is mentioned later. Is this the next slide? Or? Yeah, okay. So other causes that are not a form of syndrome, but rather it is either, for example, drugs, deficiency in certain hormones, and so on. So for example, we also have the nutritional deficiencies. So people who are not exposed to good access to food, for example, primarily protein or minerals, they're going to also present with very thin hair. Okay?
Alright, we're gonna start the nails part. So, the nails form a protective covering on the dorsal and distal surface of the part of your toe or your fingers. When we talk about positions like this, they're always in the anatomical position. So in the anatomical position, your hands are like this, so the nails are on the dorsal part and the distal part of your finger. Okay? So, what are the nails made up of mostly?
Collagen.
Keratin.
Keratin. And what type of keratin is it? Hard keratin. Tamam. Okay, the nail is consistent of three main parts. What are they? The root,
Bad.
the bud, or the plate, the nail plate, and the free edge. Okay, the root is the proximal part. If you can see here in the photo, can you all see the photo? Okay, it's the proximal part of your nail. Sorry, it's the proximal part of your nail, and it is embedded in the skin, so you can't see it. The second part, which is the nail plate, it's the visible part attached part of the nail, so you can see it. This is your nail plate. That is the nail plate. The free edge is the distal unattached portion. So this part, the part that you trim usually when you cut your nails, that's the free edge. It's the distal unattached portion that extends beyond the fingertips. The nail plate, or the nail itself, rests on a bed of epidermis. What do we call this bed of epidermis? The nail bed. So the nail bed is a bed of epidermis where the nail rests on top of it. Now this nail bed consists of only the deeper layers of the epidermis. Why?
Because the nail replaces the keratinized part.
Exactly, because the nail itself is the superficial keratinized layers, or it stands in place of the superficial keratinized layers. The nail matrix is what? It's the thickened proximal portion of the nail bed, and it is the site of what? Site of nail growth. Usually if something says nail matrix or something matrix, then it is the site of the growth of something. So nail matrix معناته شو? Site of growth of the nail cells or the nail itself. As new cells form, they become heavily keratinized. What happens is, if this is your nail bed and this is your nail, and you have new cells coming from here, the nail plate will just slide over the nail bed, and that's how your nails get longer. Does that make sense? Okay. Normally, the nail looks pink. Why? Because of the blood vessels in the dermis. There's one part in the nail that looks white. What is that?
The nail ridge.
Yeah, no, it's okay. The lanule. Where is that?
The ridge of the nail.
Yeah, it's over the nail matrix part. So it's over the nail matrix, right here. You see that? That white part, that's the lanule. It's the area over the nail matrix, and it appears white. It's crescent shaped. Okay. We have something called the nail folds. The nail folds are skin folds, right? Where do we find them? They overlap on the proximal edge and the lateral edges of the nail. So you have here, you see that's the lateral nail fold, and then this here, that's the proximal nail fold. Now the proximal nail fold will project onto the nail body as the proximal nail fold projects onto the nail body, forming what?
Cuticle.
Forming the cuticle. What's another name for the cuticle? Eponychium. Okay, under the free edge of the nail, what do we have? Hyponychium. And this thickened region, what does it do?
It fixates the nail so it doesn't fall apart.
Yeah, and? Okay, and it's the part where debris or dirt collect. Okay, do you have any questions? Okay. Changes in nail appearance can help us diagnose certain conditions. So if we notice changes on the nails, that can indicate some type of issue. So if we have yellow tinted nails or yellow tinged nails, what does that indicate?
Respiratory.
Respiratory and or
Thyroid gland.
thyroid gland disorders. If they are thickened yellow nails, what does that indicate? Fungus. Type. If we have an outward concavity of the nail, before that actually, what do we call an outward concavity of the nail? What is that called?
The free edge.
Yeah, or spoon nail. So either spoon nail or colonicchia. So that means an outward concavity of the nail. If you want to see how that looks like, there's an image in the book. I'm pretty sure it's just like you see a concavity happening in the nail. Tamam? This can indicate what? Iron deficiency. Type. If we have horizontal lines, or another name for horizontal lines is Baylasan lines. If we have them, what does that indicate?
Severe illnesses.
Severe systemic illnesses, so they affect the whole body. What are examples of those systemic illnesses?
Diabetes, heart attack,
Cancer, chemotherapy.
Heart.
Exactly. So uncontrolled diabetes, a heart attack, or cancer chemotherapy. Come on. A question. The proximal portion of the nail is the? Do we all agree that it's nail root?
Yeah.
You seem unsure.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any questions? Are we unsure why it's, if you think it's not nail root, why? Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. Then, there are two types of glands. Yes?
Can you just repeat why the free edge is white and not pink?
It's not the free edge. It's, okay. The part over the matrix. So you see the nail matrix is here, tamam? So the superficial part, the part that I can see, that is correspondent to the area of the matrix. So you have, this is under your skin. Okay, that is your nail matrix. On top of the nail matrix, what you can see is a white layer right here on top. That crescent-shaped white layer, that's the lanul, over the nail matrix. Tamam? That part is the part that's white, not the free edge. Had the free edge. That is the free edge right there.
So in reality, it's all white. And the other portion looks pink.
Which one's all white?
The entire nail.
No. The nail looks pink. The whole thing looks pink. Look at your nails. They look pink, صح? Hala, there's one part here just above your cuticle. That's white. Pink. Looks like this.
Oh, I thought we were talking about the part that we trim.
No.
Okay.
So this part here correspondent to the nail matrix. If you think about it, where is the nail matrix? Is the nail matrix here or here? Where's the nail matrix? Here or here? Okay, the nail matrix is here. Where does your nail grow from? Where is it attached to your body? Where can it receive? Oh no, it's okay. Okay, type one. Where is the nail matrix? Where would it be? Here or here? Can you see that?
I'm sorry.
Lower. Let's zoom in, tamam?
I think I can use the first images.
Okay. If we look at the nail, tamam? That's your nail. The whole thing is pink. The whole thing is pink. There is one part here that's not pink. This part that's like crescent shaped, it's the area over the nail matrix. This area is the white area. ما خصنا في free edge. We're talking about here. The nail matrix is, if you look down, where is the nail matrix? All the way in the back, here. It's not on the free edge. It wouldn't make sense to cut your nail matrix. Then where will you get nail from? صح? Where will the nail grow? تمام? So, any other questions? Yes?
Isn't the pink color from the stem?
The pink color is from the capillaries in the dermis. The dermis has capillaries.
So the actual color of the nail
from the.
The pink color is from, okay. Again, look here, come on. This is your nail bed. You see that? That pink portion here, that's your nail bed. Hello? Under the nail bed, you have the dermis. These are the blood vessels in the dermis. These blood vessels, they have blood going through them, صح? What's the color of blood? Red, okay? So your nail has that pink hue to it because of the blood vessels running through the dermis. There's no blood vessels in the epidermis. Does that make sense? So the nail bed حكينا, it's a epidermis, صح? Epidermal bed. The epidermis doesn't have blood vessels. Okay?
The nail bed is part of the nail.
The nail bed is in the.
The nail itself is white, but he means like the nail itself, not the nail bed. The nail
Okay.
itself is white, but it appears pink because of the nail bed.
Exactly. Yeah, but it's because of the dermis, مش the nail bed. The nail bed is epidermis. تمام? When we say nail bed with deeper layers of the epidermis, that means I mean the two deeper layers of the epidermis that you just took in the skin. اللي هم مين؟ اللي هم الستراتنم basale والستراتنم spinosum. These two are there. Epidermis doesn't have blood vessels. لا في السkin ولا في الnail. There is no blood vessels in the epidermis. That is a very important rule. You need to distinguish that لأنه that is something that they ask about. There is blood vessels in the dermis, not in the epidermis. Okay? I feel like I still didn't answer your question. It's okay? Tamam. So there are two types of glands that we have as skin appendages. What are they? I'm not talking about sweat glands. The two main types of glands. What are they? Sebaceous and sweat. And what are the two types of sweat glands? Apocrine and eccrine. طيب, what's another name for sweat glands?
Oil gland. No, sweat gland.
No, sweat glands, another name for them? Yes. So sudoriferous glands is another name. هلا, it's important to note that sometimes in the exam they'll get you the other name. يعني instead of saying sweat, they'll say sudoriferous or العكس, just to confuse you. طيب, where do we find sweat glands? Everywhere except.
The palms.
No, think, don't your palms sweat?
Except the nipple.
Except the nipples and external genitalia. So you have sweat glands almost everywhere, except on the nipples and the external genitalia. Tamam?
Lips as well. Lips as well.
Yeah. Lips.
Oh yeah, and no, it's just the nipples and parts of the external genitalia. The lips is for a certain type of cell. We'll get into it. Tamam? So, in both types, the secretory cells are surrounded by myoepithelial cells. These are specialized cells. What do they do?
For them.
Contract.
Yes, they contract. Tamam, they contract to do what?
So push out the sweat.
Yes. So the myoepithelial cells, they're surrounding these secretory cells that are producing this sweat. Tamam, and they surround them. What do? They get stimulated by the nervous system to contract. When they contract, they push the sweat out of the gland through its duct and then onto the skin surface. Tamam. This process is controlled by what? The autonomic nervous system. Obviously, it happens involuntarily. You don't think, well, I need to sweat and you sweat. It happens without your control. Tamam? Okay. Let's go into the first type. Eccrine, or called as well merocrine sweat glands. Type. The eccrine or the merocrine sweat glands, they are the most common type of sweat glands. They are far more numerous than the apocrine. Where are they found the most? Where can we find them most? Exactly. So on the palms, soles, and the forehead. What type of gland are they? You took this in tissues, but they are simple, coiled, and tubular. And you can see that here in this image. They are simple, they are coiled, and you can see they're tubular. Tamam? Type. The secretory portion of this gland is found where? In the dermis, and you can see that here in the image. So the secretory part is in the dermis, coiled in the dermis. Type. The duct, where does the duct open to? To the skin. It opens directly onto the skin surface. Okay. Opens directly onto the skin surface through a funnel-shaped pore. Tamam. What is the secretion of eccrine glands? What do they secrete?
Water.
No, I want the name of the fluid بالضبط. not the components of it, but what is it?
Filtrate of blood.
Yes. So it's commonly known as sweat or the hypotonic filtrate of the blood. So they secrete hypotonic filtrate of the blood. What do those secretions include? Water, so 99% water, some salts like sodium chloride or mostly sodium chloride. You have some traces of metabolic waste. So when we say metabolic waste, we usually mean urea, uric acid, and ammonia. But one thing is the dermicin. This is a microbe-killing peptide. So we have water, salts, metabolic wastes, and dermicin. Come on? Right. Sweat is usually acidic between a pH of 4 to 6. Sweating's major role is what? Thermoregulation. We need to stop ourselves from overheating. So what are the two main types of sweating that we have?
Cold sweat and
The normal one.
heat-induced sweat.
Yeah, so you have heat-induced sweat, which is like when your body temperature rises, that's heat-induced sweat. And then you have emotionally induced sweat, or what we commonly call as cold sweat. The heat-induced sweat, where does it start?
Forehead.
Starts on the forehead. Think about when you're outside or you're running, and you start dripping and it goes into your eyes. That's the first place that it starts, in your forehead. The emotional induced sweating, where does it start? Palms, soles, and armpits. Okay. And obviously, you know, it's triggered by stress, fright, etc. Now the second type of sweat glands, the apocrine sweat glands, where are they mostly found? In the armpits and? Yes, anogenital areas. This is very important, and I cannot stress this enough. Apocrine glands are merocrine in function. They're not apocrine in function. The name is misleading. They are called apocrine glands, but they are merocrine in function. Okay? So that means they release their secretions by exocytosis, just like the eccrine glands. Okay? What differentiates them from the eccrine glands?
They lie deeper in the dermis.
They lie deeper in the dermis,
They
and
are open to hair follicles.
they're open to hair
And
follicles.
They have like smell.
Yeah, okay, but I want structural difference. They are larger.
More colored.
Yeah, so they are larger than the eccrine glands. Obviously, you can see that in the image here. They are more coiled than the eccrine glands. They lie deeper in the dermis or even in the subcutaneous tissue. Their ducts, this is probably the most important difference that you would need to know. Their ducts don't open directly on the skin surface. Where do they open? Into the hair follicle. So the eccrine glands, skin surface. The apocrine glands, into the hair follicle. What is the, or what do the apocrine glands secrete? What is the secretion?
Same thing plus extra protein and fatty acids.
Exactly. So they have the same components as true sweat, or the secretion has the same components as true sweat. Plus what? Plus fatty substances and proteins. Because of these extra fatty substances and proteins, this makes it thicker, yani more viscous, and gives it a milky or yellowish in color. The secretion is usually odorless. What makes the body odor?
Because of the proteins will kill the bacteria nearby, which will send out odor.
The proteins will kill the bacteria,
And
and the
then-
bacteria will kill the proteins.
Bacteria will eat the proteins.
Exactly. So the bacteria will break down this secretion that results in the body odor, or the musky, unpleasant smell that we call body odor. When do they become active?
After puberty.
After puberty. What influences their activity? Or they are active under the influence of androgens, which are male sex hormones. تمام؟ we don't know exactly what's their function. They play very little role in thermoregulation. There is a basis or an idea that they might have a similar or a human equivalent of the sexual scent glands that we find in animals. And the evidence that they've used to support that claim is sexual foreplay increases their activity. They enlarge and shrink corresponding with the menstrual cycle. behavioral studies suggest that their secretions act as pheromones. What are pheromones?
It's like the messengers released when, like,
No.
it's like the chemical messengers that are released during like specific phases, right?
Okay, it is a chemical messenger.
affect how people would feel or
Or
Yeah.
like, it affects like the behavior.
Exactly. So it's a chemical messenger. One person will release this chemical messenger. It will affect another individual of the same species. Huh? Okay. We have two types of modified apocrine glands. What are they? What are the two modified apocrine glands?
The memory.
Yeah, and the mammary glands. So the sermulous glands, where do we find them? In the external ear. What do they secrete or produce?
Earwax.
Earwax. And earwax is called semen. Tamam? What constitutes earwax? What is earwax made of?
Sebum.
No, it's the secretions of the sermulous glands themselves plus sebum. So it's what it secretes, and sebum gives me earwax. Okay? Obviously, I think you know the function. It will trap debris, stop insects, etc. Type the mammary glands, specialized sweat glands, they secrete milk. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the sebaceous glands or the oil glands. Type. They are simple branched alveolar glands, and they are functionally holocrine. صح? Type. Where do we find them?
all over the body except the palms,
Mhm.
hands,
Yes.
and the soles of the feet.
Exactly. So we find them anywhere except thick skin. And thick skin is where? Palms, soles of the feet. Type. These glands secrete an oily substance called sebum. Type. Hala. What made us think that they are holocrine, or what explains why they are called holocrine or defined as holocrine? لأنه the central cells inside the alveoli of the gland, they will fill with oily lipids, right? And then it'll keep filling until they get so engrossed that they burst. So they burst with what's inside them as well, or with some dead cells. That's why we call it's holocrine secretion. So cells filled with oily lipids, the whole cell bursts, holocrine secretion. Type. What is the secretion made of? Sebum. Or what is the secretion is sebum. What is sebum made of?
Lipids and debris.
Lipids and the cell debris. صح؟ لأن احنا حكينا the cell has oily lipids and then it will burst, and what goes with the oily lipids? The dead cells. So mixture of lipids and cell debris. Now most of them, but not all of these glands, develop as outgrowths of hair follicles. Where are the ducts draining? Or where is the duct opening into?
Into the hair follicle.
Into the hair follicle, not the skin, into the hair follicle. So the ducts open into the hair follicle, and you can see that here. Can we all see that in the image? Opens into the hair follicle. Okay? Time. As my colleague said at the beginning of the lecture, we talked about the erector pili contraction. And what did we say? When it contracts, it will push sebum out of the hair follicle. Okay. Time. Homeostatic imbalance when it comes to the sebaceous glands. Acne. What is acne?
It's when there's a buildup of fluid inside, and then when it pops, it's like holocrine. So I think it's like,
It's inflammation.
Yeah.
So acne is active inflammation of the sebaceous gland. It's accompanied by three things, or one of three things. Pimples, so pimples or pustules or cysts.
whiteheads.
White and blackheads. Another name for whiteheads is closed comedones, and for blackheads, open comedones. Why are the blackheads black? لأنه they are open to the air, so they oxidize or they become black. يعني the white at the top reacts with the oxygen, oxidizes, becomes black. That's why it's black. But if accumulated sebum blocks a sebaceous gland duct, that's what causes the whiteheads and the blackheads. So the whiteheads and blackheads are basically caused by accumulated sebum. It will block the sebaceous gland duct, gives me whitehead or blackhead. But acne is sometimes associated with an infection by a type of bacterium called Proponibacterium acne. Okay? you might never eat pepperoni pizza again in your life after this, but you know, the way that I memorized this bacterium is because it kind of looks like pepperoni pizza, and the acne looks like pepperoni pizza. I apologize if you never eat pepperoni pizza again, but that's how I got to recognize the bacteria name in the exams. Type. Obviously, it can range from mild to severe, and if it's severe, that will cause what? Scarring. Okay? Type. The second type of issue that we might have with the sebaceous glands is what we call cradle cap or seborrhea. What is that?
It's basically when there's like when it's overactive in infants.
Exactly. So it's the overactivity of the sebaceous glands in infants. It starts as pink, raised lesions on the scalp, and then they turn yellow, and then they turn brown, and then they begin to slug off oily scales. Come on. Let's answer some questions. Which of the following types of glands are usually associated with hair follicles? Associated with hair follicles. Not drain into hair follicles. And if I said open into hair follicles, then there are two. Sebaceous glands. And what did we say? Some of them, but not all of them, are associated with hair follicles. So the answer is sebaceous glands. Come on. Where are apocrine sweat glands most abundant?
Like the armpits, right?
Yeah, armpits, axillary region. Do we all agree on that? Okay. Type. The skin and its appendages perform a variety of functions. The book divided them into 6. Protection, body temperature, sensation, metabolic functions, acts as a blood reservoir, and excretion. Type. If we talk about protection, tamam? What are the 3 types of protection that were provided by our skin? What are they?
Biological, chemical, and physical.
Physical, yeah. So we have a chemical barrier, a physical barrier, and a biological barrier. Like when we talk about chemical barriers, what does that include?
Melanin.
Melanin, okay. And?
Skin secretions.
Skin secretions. And when we say skin secretions, that includes? Sweat and?
Oil.
Sebum. So you have the melanin, you have the skin secretions, which are the sebum and the sweat. Okay? But what else other than skin secretions?
Natural antibiotics.
Natural antibiotics, yes. We have antimicrobial chemicals. What are the 2 examples of antimicrobial chemicals?
Dermicide.
Dermicide in sweat. We said that before. Tamam. What's the other thing that we have? In sebum. In sebum, we have bactericidal substances. Basically, that means that they're capable of killing bacteria. Okay. Another thing that we said that the skin is very acidic, or the skin secretions give the skin low pH, right? And we call that the acid mantle. That's important. So the acid mantle, which is the low pH of your skin secretions, this acidity will inhibit the bacterial multiplications. So the acid mantle basically is just giving a fancy name to saying low pH of skin secretions. That's it. Right. We talked about the antimicrobial chemicals. We said there are 2. Dermicide, and in sebum we have the bactericidal substances. What else do we have?
Catholicism.
Yeah, but that's when the skin is wounded.
The antibiotics.
Natural antibiotic. The natural antibiotic is defensins. So defensins are secreted by skin cells. They are natural antibiotics. Okay? So what do? They form holes in the bacterial membranes, causing them to leak, kind of like sieves. You know what here is fire. It's the same idea. Tamam? But when the skin is wounded, it releases. Yes. So these are protective peptides, particularly effective against what? Group A, Streptococcus bacteria. Tamam. And what does melanin do? How does it protect us?
UV rays.
Exactly. So it forms a chemical pigment shield against the UV rays. But when we talk about a physical barrier, what comes into mind?
Skin.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So the skin's continue.
Stratum corneum.
Yeah. So the skin's continuity and the hardness of its keratinized cells give us through a physical barrier, correct? Like the outer, if we were to compare the outer layer of the epidermis to something, you could compare it to a brick wall. And why is that? If you think about the outer layer of the epidermis, the stratum corneum, as a brick wall, and you take the dead flat keratinized cells as the bricks, and then you have the glycolipids between them. That's the same thing as the mortar. So if you look here at this image, imagine these bricks are the keratinized cells, and then around them you have the glycolipids, right? Does that make sense? So that's exactly what your skin looks like, kind of like a brick wall. Same idea. These glycolipids are water resistant. What does that mean?
They're hydrophobic.
They're hydrophobic, but what does this help me with?
It doesn't absorb the water, and it doesn't cause infection.
Yeah, so it doesn't allow water in or out, correct? Because water cannot pass through the glycolipids, another water resistance. But some substances can cross the skin membrane. What are they? We said in a water can't cross or can't leave or diffuse passively because of the glycolipids. What are the things that can cross the skin barrier?
Yes.
Anything that's polar, like that's lipid soluble.
Anything that's lipid soluble, okay.
So
And organic solvents.
and like drugs,
Certain
like medicine
drugs.
for medicine.
Heavy metals. Yes. So we divided, or the book divided them into categories. The first one is lipid soluble substances. Examples: oxygen, carbon dioxide, fat soluble vitamins اللي هم A, D, E, K. EDIC. You know the Department of Education, EDIC? Same thing, EDIC. تمام? And steroids. What are examples of steroids? اللي هم estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, etc. طيب, as your friend said, you have the oleoresins. They are from plants like poison ivy, poison oak. You have organic solvents like acetone, like dry cleaning fluid, like paint thinner. Now the problem with these is that if they enter into the skin, they will dissolve the cell lipids. Come on? Then you have salts of heavy metal, lead, mercury, certain drugs like nitroglycerin, seasickness medication, and the last thing we have is penetration enhancers. From their name, can you guess what do they do?
Make the skin more permeable.
Do they make the skin more permeable?
They make it easier to be penetrated.
Okay.
It will help drugs enter the skin easier.
Exactly. So it doesn't make the skin more permeable. It will, you know, when you are crossing the street and you hold the kid's hand and you cross the street with them, it's the same idea. So this penetration enhancer will be attached to a drug. It will hold this drug. It will pass it through the skin, and that's it. Kind of like when you cross the street with holding a child's hand. It's the same idea. But what are some problems? As I said, if we have the organic solvents entering into the bloodstream, what will that do?
It will damage the lipid.
It will damage the kidneys, yes, and the brain. So you'll have damage to the kidneys will shut down, and you'll have damage to the brain. If lead goes into your system, what happens? Anemia and neurological defects. That's why these substances should never be touched with bare hands, because they'll cross through your skin and they'll cause you issues. The last protection is biological barriers. They are from immune cells. What are the two immune cells that provide biological barrier? Exactly. So the dendritic cells, another name is Langerhans cells. They are part of the immune system. What do the Langerhans cells do? They migrate to, they find a pathogen and they'll take that pathogen. And what will they do? They'll go through the lymph node and they'll show it to another immune cell and say, this is a pathogen. And then that will start an immune response. Come on? The second thing we have is macrophages. Macrophages are in the dermis, so they are the second line of defense. ليش؟ لأن the dendritic cells were in the epidermis. Which layer specifically?
Second layer. Spinal.
So the macrophages, as I said, are in the dermis, so the second line of defense, and they phagocyte or they engulf the pathogen. They can also activate immune responses as well.
So are the first ones like indirect, and then the second one is direct?
What do you mean?
Because the dendritic cells are giving it to another.
Yeah, so you'll take this more in the immune lecture. But you don't have to worry about the specifics a lot. You'll take this next semester when you take immune. But it's basically that the dendritic cells are like antigen presenting cells, okay? So they take the pathogen and they go to other people, to other immune cells, and they say, here, this is a pathogen, go kill this. Tamam? The macrophages, no. The macrophages, you know the Pokemon game, the thingy? It does the same. It will eat.
So it's,
Tamam?
it's direct.
Yeah. Type. The second thing we said is body thermoregulation, right? Type. A basic understanding that you need to have is when your body temperature is higher than the outside temperature. So outside is colder, you will lose heat to the outside environment. So heat goes from more hot to less hot. Make sense? Tamam. What are the two types of perspiration that we have?
Insensible and sensible.
Insensible and sensible. When we say insensible, that means we cannot notice it. صح? It's part of the normal routine, normal condition, where the environment temperature is 31 to 32 degrees Celsius. So this is the normal perspiration that you don't feel. You don't notice it. Come on? Sensible perspiration happens when the body temperature rises. So imagine you go out for a run, body temperature rises, the nervous system will activate two things. What? Sweat glands, obviously, so will cause more, produce more sweat, and?
The blood vessels, the normal blood vessels.
Exactly, the blood vessels will do what? Will they dilate or will they constrict? They will dilate, allowing more blood to flow at the surface. So since it's at the surface, heat will exactly disperse. Like, the most important thing for sweat is for it to evaporate. ليش؟ لأنه the evaporation of sweat is what cools your body down. Okay? Like, what if it's cold outside? What happens?
Vasoconstriction.
Vasoconstriction, the opposite, صح?
So it would stop the blood vessels from releasing,
And
from going to the surface, so heat can't be released.
Yeah. So the vasoconstriction of the dermal vessels does what? It redirects the blood away from the skin into the main parts of the body. This causes the skin temperature to be almost the same as the outside environment. So when you get cold, you feel your hands, they're cold. Your skin is cold. That's to minimize the passive heat loss. Because we said if we're hotter than the environment, we lose heat. Now that the skin is the same temperature or almost the same temperature as the environment, then the skin is not losing heat. Make sense? Any questions? Right. When we talk about cutaneous sensation, okay, we have cutaneous receptors. They are called extra receptors. Why?
Because it's exterior, it's on the external surface, right?
Because they are receptors in the dermis that are stronger receptors.
No, just think more هيك direct.
Yeah, it's written. External stimuli.
The extra receptors, because they respond to external stimuli from outside the body, not something inside the body is stimulating them, something from the outside is stimulating them. Type. The first type we have is the tactile corpuscles. Where are they found?
Dermal.
Yep, in the dermal papillae. They are found in the dermal papillae. What do they do? What do they detect?
Like touch.
Light touches, exactly. They are found only in hairless skin. And they work closely with what? With the tactile or the Merkel epithelial cells. So these two work together. Tamam? Important difference. Tactile mercenaries or corpuscles, these are receptors. Okay? This is a receptor. Tactile Merkel epithelial cells are epithelial cells. Okay? So that's a receptor and these are epithelial cells. These tactile Merkel epithelial cells are found in the epidermis. Obviously, we already said that before, and they work closely with the tactile corpuscles. Come on. Next we have is the lamellar corpuscles. Where are they found?
Deeper in the dermis.
Deeper in the dermis or in the subcutaneous tissue. What do they detect? Stronger pressure, deeper pressure. Type. Next we have is the hair receptors or the root hair plexus. So they're either called hair receptors or root hair plexus. What do they do?
It's like you can feel when someone's pulling.
Exactly. So you can feel when someone's pulling or tugging on your hair. You can feel wind going through your hair. Tamam. The last cutaneous sensation we have is free nerve endings. These are found throughout the skin. they detect painful stimuli. What are examples of painful stimuli? Irritating chemicals, extreme heat, extreme cold, things like that. Tamam? Any questions? Tamam. Now, the skin can act as a chemical factory. يعني it has metabolic functions. What are examples of these? When sunlight bombards the skin, what happens? You have modified cholesterol molecules. They are converted to a vitamin D precursor. What happens to this vitamin D precursor?
It will travel through your bloodstream to the kidney and activate it.
It will travel through the bloodstream to other body areas. You don't have to know the organ بالضبط لأنه it wasn't mentioned in your book. To be converted to vitamin D. Like, vitamin D plays various important roles in calcium metabolism. What is an example of one of them?
The bone formation.
Okay. So, calcium can't be absorbed from the digestive tract without vitamin D. Does that make sense? So, calcium cannot be taken in by our digestive system or absorbed without vitamin D. So we need vitamin D for that. Okay. The epidermis can also make chemical conversions that supplement those of the liver. An example of that is the keratinocyte enzymes. What do? They do two things. What do?
Internalize harmful substances.
They can
prevent cancer-causing chemicals from penetrating into the skin. Right?
okay, so they can disarm cancer-causing chemicals that penetrate the epidermis, and they can.
You said something about steroids. How they can allow steroids to enter.
هدول keratinocyte enzymes. That one is, we're talking about the skin itself, the structure of the skin, and the glycolipids. Tamam? The keratinocyte enzymes, okay, they can disarm many cancer-causing chemicals, and they can activate some steroid hormones. An example of that, they can transform, cortisone when it's applied to irritated skin to hydrocortisone. And hydrocortisone is a potent anti-inflammatory drug. Okay? But skin cells also make several biologically important proteins. One of those is collagenase. From its name, what do you think it does? Exactly. So it aids in the natural turnover of collagen, which would deteriorate this.
Can you explain the disarm?
Yeah. So basically, the keratinocytes can disarm, and they can stop, for lack of better words, cancer-causing chemicals. So there are some chemicals in the body that can trigger cancer or cause cancer. So the keratinocyte enzymes can deal with that. You don't need to know the mechanism. That's the way. You don't need to know the mechanism. Does that make sense? You don't need to know exactly how they disarm, what do they disarm, what exactly they disarm, because it wasn't mentioned in your book. So the only thing that the book wants you to know, they have two functions. They can disarm cancer-causing chemicals, that's it, بس هاي الجملة, and they can activate some steroid hormones. The mechanism مش مطلوب منك. Does that make sense? Okay. It's a blood reservoir. Why? The dermis has extensive vascular network, so the dermis is full of blood vessels. Let's say we have increased demand for blood in another organ, in, for example, a vigorously working muscle. We have increased blood demand. What happens?
Vasoconstriction.
Vasoconstriction of what?
The other areas.
Which other areas?
The dermis, blood vessels.
Exactly. So when we have increased demand somewhere else and we need blood supply for another organ, the nervous system will constrict the dermal blood vessels. That will shunt or redirect the blood to whatever organ needed that the most, be it muscles, vital organs, etc. The last thing that we have is excretion. Sweat glands can eliminate small amounts of nitrogen containing wastes اللي هم ammonia, uric acid, and urea. But as we know, the majority of them are excreted where? In the urine. تمام. Profuse sweating also causes the loss of water and salts, mostly sodium chloride. Okay? Any questions before we move on? تمام. If we have a loss of homeostasis in body cells or in other organs, that can show up on the skin. Okay? And the skin can manifest a bunch of ailments ranging from infections, non-life-threatening to life-threatening cancers. Okay? But most common skin disorders would include bacterial, viral, and yeast infections. Okay? The less common, but they're more severe, they're more dangerous, are what? Are skin cancer and burns. And that's what we're going to discuss right now. We're going to look into 3 types of skin cancers: basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and melanoma. And then when we talk about burns, we're going to look at how do we evaluate first degree burn, second degree burn, third degree burn, and how to treat them. Now, when we talk about skin cancer, it's pretty common. It's like 1 in 5 people can develop it in their lifetime. What is the main risk factor for skin cancer? UV radiation. Like, UV radiation can come from where?
Sun.
And tanning beds. Like, the UV will do what? It can do 2 things. It can do DNA damage, and when we say DNA damage, what's the specific damage that happens?
It will change the sequence.
Mutation.
Oh, there is a mutation, yes. That's what it is.
Dividing cells.
Adjacent pyrimidine bases will fuse. So you have adjacent pyrimidine bases, they're like close to each other, they'll fuse together. What will they make? Dimers. And these are lesions, but they're called dimers. UV can also do another thing, which is disable a tumor suppressor gene. So UVs either will cause the mutation, or it will disable a gene that suppresses tumors. Make sense? In limited number of cases, sometimes frequent irritation to the skin, physical trauma to the skin, chemicals can be a predisposing factor to skin cancer. That means it can increase your chance of getting a skin cancer in that area. First type is basal cell carcinoma. From its name, affects which cell? Basal cells. So the basal cells will perforate. They will invade the dermis and the subcutaneous tissue. It happens in about 80% of, or it accounts for about 80% of skin cancers, which means it's pretty common. It's the most common one, and it is the least malignant. They do ask about these in exams. They'll ask you what's the most common, if it's least malignant, etc. The skin lesions occur most often where?
On the face.
On the sun-exposed areas of the face. What do they appear as? What do they look like?
Shiny.
Dome-shaped, shiny.
Also, it's like
They appear shiny, they appear dome-shaped nodules, and then later on they will develop central ulcer with a pearly beaded edge. You need to know this. I cannot stress enough how much they can ask you about appearance. They are slow growing, as we said. They rarely metastasize. We can get full cure by surgical excision. Just get rid of it. Take it out. The second type we said is squamous cell carcinoma. Which cells do they affect? They affect the keratinocytes of the stratum spinosum. So the problem is in the keratinocytes of what? Of the stratum spinosum. These cancer lesions arise most often on the head, so your scalp, ears, lower lips, and on the hands. They appear as
small red.
Okay, red. So scale. So they'll appear as scaly red papules, so a small rounded elevation. But it grows rapidly, okay? And sometimes it can metastasize if it's not removed. So if we don't detect it early and remove it, it can metastasize. How do we treat it? If it's caught early surgical removal, radiation therapy if needed, you have a good chance of survival, okay? Last one is melanoma, skin cancer, cancer of the melanocytes. What happens is, before we talk about what happens actually, it accounts for less than 1% of the skin cancers, but it causes the most deaths. Why?
Most common.
Why does it cause the most deaths?
It's more dangerous.
Why is it more dangerous?
It's more resistant. It's more resistant.
So it's more resistant, yes. Someone here said no, more malignant. Yeah, higher metastasis. So it's highly metastatic and it's resistant to chemotherapy, so it's very hard to treat. That's why it causes the most deaths. Obviously, melanoma can begin wherever there is pigment. And wherever there is pigment, there is melanocytes, melanoma. Most of these skin cancers can appear spontaneously out of nowhere, or in 1/3 of them they can appear from pre-existing moles. So you had a mole and then this mole became a melanoma. Make sense? It usually appears as a spreading brown to black patch, metastasizes rapidly, and it starts to surround the lymph nodes and the blood vessels. Okay? Early detection, as I said, is critical. Survival rates will decline with 3 things. If there's an increased thickness of the melanoma, if there's a degree of involvement of nearby lymph nodes, if there's an increase in the degree of involvement of the lymph nodes, and metastasis. How do we treat it? Surgical treatment, then we follow that by immunotherapy, radiation therapy, and recently they're trying what they call targeted gene therapy. It has promising results in the shrinking of the tumors and prolonging life. How can we recognize melanoma? There's the ABCD rule. What does A stand for? Asymmetry. So it's not a nice circle, it's a asymmetrical circle. It's not the same on both sides, unequal. B stands for border irregularity. So the borders of the lesion exhibit indentations, right? Type C, color. There's more than one color. What are some examples of the colors that you can see? Black, brown, tan, and sometimes you can see blues and reds. Diameter, it's more than 6 millimeters, kind of like your pencil eraser. Some experts add an E for evolution, which just means that it's changing over time. If you have a problem remembering what the A, B, C, D stand for, I remembered it by thinking of a child coloring in a coloring book. They cannot color symmetrically, there'll always be one part that's bigger than the other. They use a bunch of different colors and they never color in the borders. So it's border irregularity, but they use their pencil eraser to erase. Let's answer some questions. A 57-year-old woman presents with a skin ulcer, which is diagnosed as basal cell carcinoma. Which of the following epithelial layers is most likely leading to this cancer?
Yeah, because of basal.
Exactly. So the stratum basale because it's basal. Anyway, your answer is correct. Let's talk about burns. So we're done with cancers. We're going to go to the last part, alhamdulillah, of this chapter, which is burns. What is a burn? What's a burn?
Tissue damage.
Tissue damage. Caused by what?
Heat.
Heat.
Chemicals.
High electricity. Chemicals. So tissue damage caused by intense heat can be chemical, radiation, or electricity. What happens is they kill the cells in the affected area. What will that do? That will destroy the protective barrier function of the skin. What happens if I lose the protection of the skin?
The water will start to go outside.
Yeah, so I'll have loss of bodily fluids, which means dehydration. What else? Infection, I can have electrolyte balance. The most important thing, the biggest problem that I have with burns is the loss of fluids. And with the loss of fluids comes the loss of electrolytes. Yani fluids and electrolytes go together. So if water leaves, electrolytes leave with water. Okay? After dehydration or electrolyte imbalance happens, you can get circulatory shock. What is circulatory shock?
Because of the loss of blood fluid,
Yeah?
you will start to lose blood circulation, right?
Yes. So we said we lose water, صح? So that means we'll have a decreased blood volume. When we have a decreased blood volume, you have inadequate blood circulation. Inadequate blood circulation, circulatory shock. Make sense? Another thing you can have is renal failure. Your kidneys will shut down. Okay? To prevent death, the first thing you need to do? IV. I said the biggest problem is loss of fluids. So what do I need to do? Replace the fluids through an IV, which just means intravenous. I'm sure you guys know. Tamam? Okay, now evaluating burns. What constitutes first degree, second degree, third degree? When we talk about first degree, the damage is only to what? The epidermis. Some of the symptoms? Redness, swelling, pain. It can heal within 2 to 3 days. It's an example of it. Sunburn. These are called partial thickness burns, and what we mean by that is that they don't affect the entirety of the skin thickness, they affect part of it. So when we talk about first degree, the only part that they affect is the epidermis. Like, second degree, they affect what? Epidermis and the upper dermis. Their symptoms include first, the ones that we see in the first degree plus what? Plus blisters. So you have red, you have swelling, you have pain, plus blisters. Skin regeneration can occur within 3 to 4 weeks. So like a month, and these are also partial thickness burns. Make sense? The last most damaging who are third degree burns. They affect what? The entire thickness of the skin.
It doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt? Can anyone tell me why it doesn't hurt? Yeah, because the nerve endings have been burnt off. They can appear as
Like
dark red, gray, yeah. So grey, white, or cherry red, or blackened. Tamam? And as your friend said here, you don't feel pain لأنه the nerve endings are destroyed. The main complication is you have a fluid loss and you have infection risk لأنه you've lost the protective layer of your skin. Okay? We treat it by skin grafting. Obviously, it's a full thickness burn لأنه the entirety of the skin has been burnt. Questions. Which of the following clinical presentations associated with first degree burns? C?
Yes.
Okay, you are correct. It is C. What type of burn appears white or black with no immediate pain? Third degree burns. Right. A newly admitted patient has a large burned area on the right arm. This area appears red. It has blisters. It's very painful. What should it be categorized as?
Partial thickness, second degree.
Exactly. Partial thickness, second degree. Right. When are burns life-threatening?
When it's
Face,
when
hand, or
it's
feet.
more than
Face, hands, or feet? Okay.
when it's more than
Rule of
25% of the body.
Okay. What type is more than 25% of the body?
The
Second degree.
Okay. And one more condition.
More than 10% of third degree burns.
Exactly. So more than 25% of the body has second degree burns, as your colleague said, or you have more than 10% of the body with third degree burns, or you have third degree burns that affect the face, the hands, or the feet. What is the problem with burns in the face? What's the complication we're worried about?
They can affect the respiratory tract.
Exactly. So the facial burns introduce the possibility of burning the respiratory passageways. When that happens, they can swell and you suffocate. Alright, we have what we call the rule of nines. Important. They can get so many questions about this in the exam. Okay? The rule of nines is used to estimate the total surface of the body that is affected by burns or is burned in adults. The body is divided into 11 areas. Each area constitutes 9%, and then you have 1% for the genitalia area. This figure, these percents here are only the anterior portion. This is very important, okay? These percents that are shown here are only for the anterior portion, which means that if I were to burn the anterior portion of my right arm, how much percent is that?
4.5.
Is it 9 or 4.5? 4.5, because it's only the anterior portion. Makes sense? Only anterior portion, 4.5. If I say I burnt my right arm completely, posterior and anterior, 9%. If I say I burnt the anterior surface of both upper limbs, is it 18 or 9?
You said both.
Both upper limbs anterior. Both anterior surface of the upper limbs. So that's 4.5, 4.5.
Oh, okay.
These are your upper limbs.
They're 9. Okay.
Okay, now. If I say burnt both lower limbs posteriorly. Both posteriorly lower limbs.
No, she said posterior. Lower limbs. 9, 4.5.
No.
9.
So, guys, what's for anterior is the same for posterior. Okay? So, the percentages here, as I said, are showing for only the anterior portion, which means there are the same percentages for the posterior. So, it's 9 for anterior and 9 for posterior. So, if I burn one lower limb anteriorly, 9%. If I burn the whole lower limb, anterior and posterior, 18. If I burn both lower limbs, anterior part only, 18. If I burn both limbs but posterior only, 18. Make sense? So yeah, that's mostly what we've discussed here in this figure. The anterior trunk is about 18%. If I say I burnt anterior and posterior trunk, 36. Type, according to the rule of nines, what percent would be a burn to the entire left leg?
18.
Okay, when assessing the extent of burns on the body using the rule of nines, the anterior and posterior trunk represent about 36. Okay, the last part, treating burns. The problem we have with burns is that the body has a lot of metabolic functions happening, right? Because it wants to replace what it has lost. So we need nutrients, we need energy. We have thousands of extra calories that are needed, and it's physically impossible to eat those calories, right? So we need to supplement nutrients via either gastric tube or IV lines to replenish that lost nutrients. Tamam? As I said, remember the first thing that we do is replace the body fluids. Once we're done with that the first crisis and we fix that, what's our next main problem? After bodily fluids?
To replace the
infection.
Yeah.
So after I've dealt with the fluid replacement, my biggest issue is infection. My biggest worry is infection. And again, I've lost my skin. I've lost the protection against infection. Infection risk is the main threat. Why? The skin barrier is destroyed. It will allow pathogens, bacteria, viruses, etc. And the dead tissue provides a nutrient-rich environment for these microbes, so it makes them easier for them to multiply. Another problem that we have is sepsis. What's sepsis?
The bacterial infection.
Widespread bacterial infection. That's basically what it is. It's the leading cause of death in burn victims. So we understand that use of antibiotics or prescribing antibiotics for burn patients is important. Long-term treatment of burns. If we have a full thickness burn, we said how do we treat it? Skin graft. What are the two types of skin grafts?
Synthetic and from another part of the body.
Yeah, so you have what you call autograft, which just basically means they take a part from your skin to replace or graft that burnt area. Another thing they can do is a donor, صح? They get skin from another person. But what's the issue with that?
It might be
Might not match. The immune system will reject it. Like, even if the immune system accepts it, we have the risk of scar tissue. If scar tissue forms, that makes it very hard for mobility over joints. Okay? As your friend said, there's also synthetic skin. Synthetic skin made up of silicone for the epidermis. For the dermal layer, you have the spongy layer made up of collagen and ground cartilage. The process, you can read it in your own time. Because not many questions will come on this, but it's good to have a basic understanding. Okay? The silicone layer is basically, what happens is the synthetic skin is applied to the area, and then over time, what happens is the dermal tissue grows and replaces the artificial one. And then what do? They'll remove the silicone layer, and it will be replaced by cultured epidermal cells from that grown from that person's cells. 3D bioprinting is the new research that they're going into. What are the advantages of it?
Functional epidermis.
Functional epidermis, vascularized dermis. It's important to know the advantages, which means you'll have a better graft survival, correct? لأنه we have vascularized dermis, functional epidermis. Okay. We're done with the PPT.